Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Compliance.ai's developer platform and API webinar. Our speakers today are co-founder and CEO of Compliance.ai, Keyvan Ali-Kani, and co-founder Danielle Deibler. The agenda today will be going over an introduction and overview of Compliance.ai, and then going through a demo of the platform as well as the sample applications, and ending with some Q&A. And a survey will be emailed out following the presentation as well.
Thank you so much, Shauna. The problem we're trying to solve at Compliance.ai is really providing a better level of intelligence to financial regulatory compliance professionals. We're a 2-year-old company with a shipping generally available solution. We are providing a solution, as I mentioned, to financial compliance professionals. And the challenge that we're seeing in the marketplace today is the amount of time that compliance teams spend just chasing regulatory changes. This includes what's happening from a rules and proposed rules perspective, executive orders, enforcements and judgments, documents that come out in the form of notices, both at a federal and state level agency, regulatory content, and then also included in that are mainstream news, what's happening from a white paper write-up perspective by thought leaders in the space. And compliance teams spend inordinate amount of time just finding out what has changed, which piece applies to their organization, how should they prioritize, which topics are covered in those documents. And in order to achieve that today, they take a manual route of throwing bodies at the problem, where they continuously navigate site by site, agency by agency, or maybe use a search engine to solve the problem, and ultimately spend a lot of time, resources on a tedious task that is error-prone. We try to solve that. We found that banks spend a lot of time in this process, and in fact, this is a priority to the foreseeable future in terms of being able to respond to regulatory changes, and we're trying to help them in this regard. So what we offer today is a solution that provides comprehensive regulatory research, a comprehensive regulatory research solution by gathering content from dissimilar sources across federal and agency level providers, white papers, mainstream news, and bringing it together in a very easy to use collection. From one side, you can look at a to-do list that tells a compliance professional what they need to pay attention to today, from the topics, agencies, and states that are important to them, to the ability to step back and look at trends and find out what's happening in the regulatory landscape, which agencies are busy, what's the heat map from an enforcement or complaint perspective. And so ultimately, all this is provided in a highly curated fashion through the platform. We take advantage of Expert in the Loop, where we use subject matter experts to help us rate, rank, and classify these documents to provide arguably the largest collection of real-time curated financial regulatory content. With that, I'm going to switch to a demonstration of the product so you get a sense of what the developer platform provides and what kind of applications you can build on top of our solution. So here we are at the home screen of the developer.compliance.ai portal. We can log in and create an account. After registering, request for keys, so you can use it as a token to invoke the service. We talked about one sample application, which was the Acme International USA application. You can see more about this application under documentation and learn more about the various services. What does it do? It's essentially an app that sits on top of our platform after we curated documents from dissimilar sources across state and federal level agencies and mainstream and non-mainstream content providers such as white paper providers. We then normalize it, cleanse the documents, make sure that they're rated, classified, and ranked properly through our Expert in the Loop method that we talked about a little bit earlier, and then serve it up in the form of an API. Either we have a shrink wrap app called the Compliance.ai Pro Edition, or in the form of other sample applications that we provide, one of which is the Acme Insight app that I'm going to show you now. So this application, we provide the documentation for it in terms of what does it do, and I'm going to log into it and see how it actually works. So here, I'm logged in with a social login. I could use Gmail, LinkedIn, or Twitter accounts, and that's all that it takes for a user to start using this sample app. I'm going to use the sample application to make a search to search for a set of documents that are related to the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act. Notice the autocomplete. We'll see later how the API enables us to do this. I can search for this, and here an invocation is made to the API, and the response is then rendered on this portal for the sample application. You see that we also provide an insightful graph next to the search results that are rendered. So not only do you see the title and the key dates for this document, but you also see a summary of the content that is being made available. If I click on the document, I can actually see, excuse me, more information, or I can actually go to the website, or if there's a PDF associated with the document, I can see that content right then and there as well. Another thing a user may want to do is restrict the search to take advantage of some of the attributes we provide, such as date restriction, restricted to one or many of the sources that compliance.ai pulls from, or restricted to specific document types. So for example, here we're going to restrict it to final rules and enforcements only related to the Dodd-Frank Act. So making the search again, what you're going to see here is now the search results shows other types of documents with effective dates and publication dates. As an example, this one is an SEC complaint document, and we click on it, excuse me, we can see the actual complaint that's been filed for a specific case, and we can look at the actual document underlying there. In addition, with the Acme app, we show an interesting use case where users can actually subscribe to the content using RSS feeds. So search either by keywords, by the agency sources, or again by topic, and you see a list of subscriptions that I've subscribed to here. The content is provided to me in the form of an RSS feed. Or alternatively, I can then take this, look at the feed URL, and see the same content fit into an off-the-shelf third-party RSS reader. So for example, I'm going to take this Bank Secrecy Act, look at the document feed URL, copy it, and then go into a off-the-shelf RSS reader such as Feedly, go to Add Content, go to the publication, paste the link, and notice that Feedly recognizes as a properly formatted RSS feed. I add it to one of my feeds, and now I see Bank Secrecy Act as something I can follow using a third-party tool like Feedly. I can click on that same document or a different document here in terms of content that's been rendered, see the summary, or go to the website to actually get the full content for the document being rendered. So coming back to the overview, that's just one of a sample, that's one sample application of a list of apps that you can write on top of the API, render the content, subscribe to it, and ultimately build your own application to bring this into your own content management app, your own governance risk compliance solution, or your integrated risk management product. What I want to talk about next is really the interactive API. Here is where you get to see the methods that we've used in those sample apps that I demonstrated a little bit earlier. For example, I was able to search documents. As you saw, I was able to type DOD and get Dodd-Frank Act completed. That's a suggestion endpoint or method. I can get the PDFs that compliance.ai has curated. I can get a list of agencies that we support. So as an example here, I'm going to go to the suggestion method. And similar to what we did as part of the Acme app demonstration, I'm going to push DODD or DOD and select that and try the method. I see a request response in the form of a JSON request coming back, a JSON response coming back, which shows that the auto-completed suggested phrase would be the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, and it gives me the unique identifier that then I can use in the other APIs to say, yep, that's the content, that's the concept that I'm looking for in my searches. That's the query that I want to use in the subsequent searches. So once I've arrived at the suggestion, which I don't have to use, but this helps me narrow down my search, I can use the search API and populate either a freeform query or a unique topic ID, act ID, regulation ID, or concept ID, and we'll talk about the documentation a little later. I can restrict the search results from a publication perspective, the type of documents that I'm narrowing down, just like we did in the Acme sample application where we searched for enforcements and I think rules. And then also I can look at the number of documents that come back, so I can optimize this from an efficiency perspective. We don't by default send back the full text, but if you're inclined to get that, you could do that. Obviously, it slows down the response because some of these documents are 50, 60, sometimes over 100 pages long. And here I can actually restrict by the source list. If I want to see what these sources are, I can click on the agency method and get a list of all the sources that Compliance.ai curates content from. Again, the JSON response shows me a comprehensive list of agencies. For example, agencies such as the Joint Board for Enrollment and Actuaries, and you see the short name, you see the unique identifier, and you can see that you can restrict based on these identifiers then in the actual agency ID attribute of the search method. You can list them as multiple IDs simply by following the format that's indicated over here. So I'm going to now try that, and in response, I'm going to see that the product actually provides a list of documents that tells me there's 3 in this response based on the search parameters that I provided, gives me the unique identifier of the agency, the short name and the full name, and then goes through each of the search results with a title, a friendly web URL, the agencies where the document was fetched from, the category of the document, a summarization of the document, and some other key attributes about the document that was fetched. If I wanted to get the actual PDF that was referenced within a document with the unique identifiers of the search results, I can come back to the get PDF method and get back the full PDF in the form of a object that then I can turn into a PDF document and render it within my application as I see fit. An upcoming feature, we have an iframe where you can embed Compliance.ai search toolbar and insights into your application simply by embedding an iframe into your product. Everything that I just showed requires the user to have a valid key that gets issued to you as a registered user. You go to request key for the document search API. Once you do that, you can take advantage of the platform, not only to invoke the methods through the I/O interactive API interface, but also write an application that fits your requirements. This is one set of methods that we provide today, a set of methods that we provide today. Keep coming back here for updated methods and expanded methods that we plan to make available through the Compliance.ai platform. While we were demonstrating the various methods I mentioned, there's other portions of the documentation that help you. So for example, as you go through the documentation, you can take a look at, okay, that document that gets sent back to me as part of a search result, what are the attributes of that document? So this kind of shows you the anatomy of one of the document objects inside that JSON response from the search API. If you want to get a comprehensive list of all the agency sources that are available through the API, this link really gets you there. And then from what type of documents can you take advantage of within the platform, what do we curate and make available through the API, you can see that in the document type. And for a list of topics that we curate and make available through the API, you can look at the topics tab. This list is also ever growing, and come back and stay tuned for more topics that get curated by the platform.
Okay, thank you, Kayvon and Danielle. So I have received about 4 or 5 questions here via email, and I'm just going to present them in the order that they were received. Okay, so I won't direct it to anyone, whoever can answer. So the first question I have is, are there any restrictions?
Yeah, currently for the free account, we limit you to around 500 queries per day. And that will be something that will probably change over time as we kind of iterate through what the right level is for that level of access.
Yes, and on the Acme product, we restrict to 5 RSS subscriptions and 20 results per subscription, and then you can sign up for the paid version to remove that restriction.
Okay, the next question is asking when or about what time do we expect the iframe to be available?
Probably by the end of the year. Right now we're just working through some testing with it.
Okay, and we would email all registered developers to announce once that is available. So are all the features on the Pro Edition going to be available through the API?
Right now, all the features that we have inside the Pro product are definitely not available in the core set of APIs. This is a starting point for us, and we will release more features as we feel they're ready to be consumed by the public. So that really is kind of the thing that's blocking us right now. We're kind of in a drink your own champagne type of a mode where we're building a product on top of our own APIs.
Instead of eat your own dog food.
Yeah, I love drinking your own champagne.
That's a little bit better, yeah.
It's got more class.
Yeah, well, one example is insights. Like right now, we have a set of nice insights on the product, and we get asked by people, how can we ingest that into our product? And we're thinking of making those available through the API, the data behind some of those insights.
So yeah, we will definitely be increasing the number of APIs that we have available and the amount of control that developers have, but it'll be iterative over time.
Okay, thank you. And how far back do the available documents, the publication dates, go back to?
Typically, it's going to be around 1984. That's when the government did a big push to put a bunch of documentation online. There are cases, though, where we have things that are as far back as kind of the 30s and 40s, but typically you're pretty set if you're looking at something that's 1984 and beyond.
Okay. So again, around the documents, are there any limits on the number of documents returned?
Not really, although I would recommend that you do put some limits on it, just because sometimes there can be a lot of text that you're trying to handle. So that's definitely, we put it at 10 inside the interactive API just because it's going to be a speedy query, but you can request as many as you want.
Okay, and this is the last question I have. What else can I sort document results by?
Typically category is going to be the other area. So you can actually, so say you're looking for 3 types of documents, final rules, enforcements, and proposed rules. You can sort by category type, and then you'll get all of the final rules and essentially the top of the blob, all of the enforcements in the bottom of the blob that you're asking for, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. That completes the webinar presentation today. Please visit developer.compliance.ai to try out the developer platform yourself. And lastly, any other questions you have, feel free to email developer-support@compliance.ai. Thank you.